Good morning, everybody. It is May 10th. It is also Mother's Day, the one holiday that is, for lack of better words, one of the, I don't know if I should say most important holidays or important holidays the world has ever known. The reason why I say this is because, factor, if it wasn't for mothers, one, we would never be born, and two, the world would not be filled with such diverse people. Um, Now I'm an only child, so I'm the only one to wish my mother a happy Mother's Day, or take her out to dinner, or surprise her with gifts of one form or another. Now I know a lot of families don't have um, the affordability or the ability to take your mom out for a big dinner or surprise her with an extravagant gift that she's been wanting, or any of those things. But there are many different people who celebrate Mother's Day in many different ways. Sometimes it could be something as simple yet as gracious as making breakfast so she can have breakfast in bed, or she doesn't have to get up and make you breakfast if your mom has been making you breakfasts or meals since you were a tot. Um, excuse me. My mom is a, I don't want to say a recluse, because she's not. She doesn't live by herself. Um, but she's not one for being in the limelight of a camera, or she gets embarrassed, I guess, sometimes when you lavish her with. I mean, she's gracious enough to accept the gifts and whatnot, but she's very, very simple. I mean, she would prefer. Um, I can't think of the name of the lifestyle. A minimalist. Thank you very much. Whatever person gave me that information. A minimalist. 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 Try to say that 5 times fast. Um, she doesn't like clutter. She doesn't like a lot of extra stuff that's not needed or wanted. Um, and sometimes it's hard to to figure out what she wants. So our plans for mom today is to take her to Colton's. We had called ahead to ask them about when would be the best time and can we do reserved seating. They do not have reserved seating, but they basically informed us that the best time should be around 3 o'clock. Um, on a Sunday, I can understand why 3 o'clock, because it's in between. Most church groups are out by noon and done with their lunch, brunch, whatever by 2, and then the dinner crowds don't come around until 4 or 5. That's a guesstimation. Being today's Mother's Day and they finally got to open their doors Monday, who knows what it's going to be like. It's, as my father used to say, it's a crapshoot. Roll the dice and see what happens. Um, it's also one of those days where, for those of us, and I'm not one of them, hopefully that won't be something I have to deal with for another decade or two. Um, so it's one of those, for those who have lost their mother, like my, I'm trying not to get emotional, like Jenny Ann. Um, we also celebrate those that we've lost, and I am going to get emotional. I'm sorry. Oh, wait. Uh-oh. That don't look good. Okay. Excuse me. That was very inappropriate. My sinuses have been clogged almost all night, and part of it might be because of all the sanding and whatnot we did yesterday with the project, which is something I wanted to talk about as well. Um, I don't leave a good word until later on after when I'm done with most of this. Yesterday was a very successful day. Um, we got the coffee bar topper put together and in place. Um, those of you who are not a fan of my wife's channel, you can see that video. Um, I don't know how soon, but that video, the video that we were shooting yesterday when we did our coffee bar topper, which no headaches, no headbutting, just pre project planning. I guess we discussed how we're going to do it, what we wanted to do, what was the best way of doing it, the ideas we both had. We basically did that. Um, so that was all done yesterday, and we did a lot of we basically attached the table topper. We did the trim, sanded down the trim, sanded down part of the pre-trim area because it wasn't somehow while attaching the boards to the actual cabinet we have it on top of the the board in between the second board, the board on top of the actual cabinet, in between the cabinet and the actual top, slid, um, basically slid forward just enough to cause a unevenness on the edging in the front. So I had to, and I say I because the factor I was the one who wanted to do it. I sanded down the front, and it if Jerry Ann doesn't block out that particular area of audio, I had a I don't know how to describe it because a lot of Christians don't believe in reincarnation or anything of that matter, which kind of it's one of those touchy feely type areas in the Bible because um, we're missing according to certain scholars and whatnot because of after reviewing the Dead Sea Scrolls that they found along the banks of the Jordan. It was accidentally found by a goat farmer. Um, yeah, there's information in those Dead Sea Scrolls, and it was probably information that was available to those who wrote the precursor to the modern day Bible. That talks about a lot of stuff that people kind of go what, but it talks about and if you read the Bible just right, you kind of go, wait a minute, what's a wheel within a wheel? Dead Sea Scrolls talk about UFOs and alien visitations. It also talks about um, certain psychic abilities like telekinesis and telepathy, empathy, which a lot of people still have. There are some people out there that actually have empathic abilities, um, but I done my research. I've done research into the metaphysics, and there's a lot of people who've gone under hypnosis or who've had near-death experiences, who've experienced while under the possibility of being dead, um, past information that is not in history books, but can describe their environment and what's going on to a T. So basically, while I was sanding, I had this weird memory feeling of a possible past life where I was either a um, boat builder during the Viking era or a carpenter during the Renaissance era. Just like a weird sense memory type thing of doing the sanding and the smell and the whole 9 yards. And I don't do a lot of woodworking, so I don't have like, oh yeah, I did this last week type feeling. No, no, I've never. I most of the woodworking I've ever done was either holding a board down so somebody could saw it or watching somebody do woodworking. I've never done the actual hands-on work. So I kind of went, yeah, okay, what's going on? But it was mentioned between me and Jerry yesterday when I was doing sanding, and she was filming at the time, so I don't know if it was caught or if she's gonna leave it in place. But the project in a whole so far has been no issues, no problems, just a lot of work. Um, what else happened yesterday? I mean, yesterday, for all intents and purposes, even though we got started a little later in the day, it was a good day. Um, what else from yesterday I want to talk about? Oh, yes. Now I know a lot of you are probably wondering why I'm still getting stuff. Um, it's a combination of a lot of stuff that I'm still getting has been on back order since right before the COVID. But I finally got one particular piece or item that I wanted. Did I show that other one? I'm gonna re-show this because I don't remember if I showed it to you. But I tried to wear it, and as usual, the one of the clasps came off the cord that it was on. Um, these cords are not that great. I mean, you could probably use this after you've taken off the hardware for a project of one form or another. But these little bits that they have on there, they're just clamped on real tight. But the thing is, if they get pulled hard enough, they break. They come off the cord. So hopefully I have a chain that I can use this for. But now that I'm thinking about it, I did show this to you, but I wanted to show it to you again for a particular reason. I got the little Mjolnir Thor's hammer type necklace, amulet, whatever you want to call that, because I've been looking at a lot of the jewelry or whatnot from the time the Viking era or the Dark Ages, however you want to put it. I have a couple different discussion or different Facebook groups that talk about the Norse and whatnot, and the fact that one of them happens to be, and well, I shouldn't say happens to be because I really don't know, but their information is spot on from the actual research from the various um, Norwegian archaeology groups and whatnot. The person was spot on by the fact that a lot of, until recently when they found a bunch of different buried Norseman ships and the various things that they put on these ships to be taken up to Valhalla or Asgard or wherever. Um, so this information is directly from an archaeologist, but they were saying how that a lot of information from that era about these particular people were either passed down by oral tradition until somewhere in the, what did they say, 8 900 AD, um, and they're called the sagas, and they're basically the different stories about the different groups or people or person But the whole Viking, and we're going to use that word because it that word is not a it's not a description of a people. It's a description of a action. In fact, someone said if you would translate the word Viking into if from old, what did I say? Not Old Norse, Old Frank. Old Frank was the first used written words, or basically it's from the Dramatic period or the Dramatic people, which basically focuses in that area of Europe. Um, but anyhow, they were saying how basically a lot of what people are thinking is from the Viking era. Um, basically predict it's basically Hollywood has been trying to produce, especially some of the modern day shows, not the older movies that had Kirk Douglas in his younger days, the black and white movies. Um, HBO's, they were saying HBO's series, The Vikings, or Vikings, is almost closer to what Vikings were. But you got to realize, though, the Vikings were made up of Norse, or Norwegian, Scandinavian, Swede, and northwestern German people, because those areas, including Northern Ireland and Northern Scotland, were heavily settled by the Norse people, or the Vikings, however you want to put it. Um, so a lot of their art and a lot of their armor and equipment and daily lives were either passed down by oral history until they were written down in the late 800, early 900 AD period. Um, some of the stories came from people that they conquered or raided, um, and their raiding parties were not exactly pretty. A lot of the raiding parties were a combination of ransacking villages, killing people, taking their belongings basically for whatever purposes. Until 12, 1300s, where they stopped raiding and they became more traders because they realized that they can make coin or trade for one thing or another for things that they had that nobody else could get. Um, there's evidence of their trade routes going as far east as Arabia, possibly even China. Their exploration goes all the way over to here in America, the North American region, Nova Scotia. What's that one place that they actually found an actual Norse settlement? They even tried to make a movie of this. I can't remember the name of the island itself, but the movie I think was supposed to be Shelter Island or something like that. It's somewhere off the coast of Nova Scotia, between Nova Scotia and Maine. But anyhow, the reason why I was saying all that is because my latest acquisition, I guess you'd say, it's supposed to be a replica. Of course, most of the items I have are replicas. It's supposed to be depicted of a Norse jewelry piece. And there it is. It's supposed to be two. Now, I don't know if they're supposed to be wolf heads or dragon heads, because I know wolf and dragon were heavily depicted in Nordic mythology. But I'm going to put it on. Now, if you notice that the opening here where you're supposed to slide your wrist is a little small, you can pull it apart without damaging it. It's supposed to be that way. But I found a way that if I put it like this, I can... It was working yesterday. Why isn't it working today? Okay, there we go. But I can get it on. It's a little loose. I don't mind looseness. But it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to have it so tight that you can't get it back off. Even though there are stories of people who would, and I can pull it right off, would close it, squeeze it closed so it wouldn't slide up and down the wrist or come off too easily. I tried that yesterday, and then I had to end up hurting myself to pull it apart just to get it on and off my wrist. I know I've got a lot of, bracelets and wrist things for whenever I feel like wearing them. I won't wear too many at once because I tried that once and it just looked a little ridiculous. But I'm a little ridiculous anyhow. I'm nuts. No, I say that I do that a lot. I myself a lot. I'm sorry. Now I know lately I've been talking about a lot of different things. And for those of you who are having issues following me because I jump from subject to subject, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not. What I am going to tell you is, as it says in the beginning of most of my videos, welcome to Jim's Brain. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. If you don't enjoy the ride, that's not my problem. Alright. I do feel sorry for you, though, because of the fact that it's like a lot of people this way. It's just you don't notice it because you don't deal with them on a regular basis. So, that in fact, I wonder how many people who deal with you on a regular basis and have issues because they're either A, not having an easy time following along with you, or B, just don't want to deal with you. I know that sounds a little negative, but we all have our tolerance levels. We all have our issues. There is no such thing as a perfect person. There was one perfect person, and he died over 2,000 years ago. And we know about that perfect person through the Bible. His name was Jesus. And yes, that brings us to today's inspirational Bible read. Today's read was entitled No Need is Too Trivial. It is from Isaiah 49:13 through 18, with highlights from Psalms 103:13. And it says right here in the very beginning, the Psalms 103:13 is, as a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him. Sorry, I had to double check that word. Basically, the author, and this is from a lady. Not that I'm surprised, because I've read plenty of lady authors. But she goes to talk about how some mothers of small children share their encouraging answers to prayers. Even though one woman was a little concerned about her own prayers. And the reason why she was concerned was she thought that her prayers were trivial compared to the factor of all the different important prayers that God has to face on a regular basis. I understand that woman's plight, I guess you'd say, as I thought about a lot of different little prayers that I've had in the past and went, wow, that just seems so trivial to ask for something so small or insignificant in my older aged eyes. But no one, no prayer, no matter how small or big it is trivial in God's eyes. Yeah, you sometimes I sometimes wonder, how does he deal with so many different prayers? Some of them could be ridiculous, and I'm talking about my own prayers, not other people's. But some of them are so ridiculous. It's like, why did I even ask about that, let alone for that? Now, I've had some prayers that it's like, not me, or not me, excuse me, not her, me. um, when, excuse me, um, when when I found out about my cousin Michelle's departure, and she was only about a year, a year older than me, and she had two kids, and she died of cancer. Basically, it was a, a bone marrow cancer that could have, if the first set of doctors caught it in time, be treated. Um, but it wasn't. And at the time, I was newly married, had no kids, and I literally wondered, let alone asked, why he would take somebody who was still quite young. We were in our 30s, but she had two kids, and a better heart. She went to church on a regular basis. I did her. She had granted, at the time, uh, she was working. I don't remember exactly what she was doing, but she was working at a paint company. And I don't know if it was Sherwin-Williams or what company it was. No, it wasn't even Sherwin-Williams. It was uh, DuPont. And a lot of the areas that she had to work in or go through to check basically was um, it had a lot of chemicals, a lot of airborne particles that, unbeknownst to anybody, were harmful. Um, I guess they were harmful because of the quantity or volume, but it was believed that that's what caused her to become cancerous. Well, of course, you know, between the medical people not catching the problem in time and then finding out after the factor, by the time it was too late, that it was cured. It could have been cured. It could have been dealt with. but because the first set of doctors didn't basically pass it off as something other than cancer or possible cancer, um, her husband and my family and her parents, basically my aunt and uncle, sued the crud out of the medical field, and of course subsequently won a big victory. But there's the old saying about unanswered prayers. Now, I'm not saying that because of the fact that sometimes a lot of our prayers seem to be unanswered because they just you don't see you don't see the results of the prayer. And sometimes the prayers are unanswered because of the fact that it's not time. That's one of the biggest factors that I deal with on a regular basis that I don't quite understand. And what I guess we're not supposed to understand is time. When is it my time? And I don't mean when is it my time to pass away. When is it my time to get what I want? But when is it going to be, or when is our time going to be? Is what I should be saying. We don't know. That's up to that guy upstairs. All we can do is continue to pray and hope. So, I am hopeful that things turn out for the better for everybody during the crisis that we're facing, during the somewhat obvious yet not obvious changes that's happening globally, not just locally, but globally. We are a global community. It does not matter where we are or who we are. We're kind of stuck in the same boat. And I'm pretty sure if it wasn't for the Tower of Babel and that screw up, we would all speak the same language. And I know a lot of people are starting to say, oh yeah, we're all speaking English. Yeah, we are when it comes to certain situations, but when it comes to one-on-one communication with somebody of the same nationality or same linguistics, we might not always speak English. In fact, I have two, and please don't take offense to this, but I have two Hispanic gentlemen who come into my store on a regular basis for lottery, and they speak to themselves. They're and I don't want to say Mexican or what, but they're Hispanic or Latin language. Would it be considered Latin because they're from South America, from Mexico or some Central South American language or land, or would it be because it always confuses me when I talk about the Central and South American languages, because I know in Brazil they speak Portuguese, or a dialect of Portuguese. You got to realize that even in some countries, like let's just say I'm going to take Germany because I know Germany pretty well. Germany has their mainstream language, but they have three forms of their mainstream language. They have High German and Low German. High German is usually the upper class business type German, while Low German is your everyday street German. Now, what they teach us in school here is what that is called High German. It's good for business and whatnot, and also if you're not from Germany, it makes you look like a tourist. That's what my argument was in high school. That's not German. That's not the German I learned, and I learned it off the streets. But it's still a German. And then they have a third form of German, which is not pure German. Yes, not pure French or pure Italian or any of those border countries, because well, especially the French. The French have their language and the Germans have their language, and when they're in areas that do a lot of crossovers, there's like an invisible border so many miles into Germany or France, and within that region there's a dialect where what they use, which is a combination of German and French, that is basically used as a trade language. Sometimes it's High German, sometimes it's a form of French, sometimes it's a combination. Um, Now, I've never had to deal with that because, in fact, I've never been that close to the French border while we were in Germany. Um, but this is things I learned via friends and friends and acquaintances that have been in those areas, as well as um, various educational TV like National Geo and some other uh, National Geo and BBC. I know BBC is a British broadcasting network or whatever, but then a lot of the other countries that are close by Germany either speak a form of Germanic, um, or they speak a trade dialect. Basically, is what I like to call it. Because I know like Sweden and Switzerland and Austria and those places speak a form of German. Um, it might not exactly be the identical language, but it's a form of German. It's you know, but when it comes to, I know I jumped from one thing to another. I'm sorry. Prayer and prayer and communication to God. Um, we all have our own different versions of prayer. We have our own different languages to use to pray in because of our nationality and whatnot. But in the whole, when it comes down to it, whether we're praying for ourselves, which seems a little selfish, but sometimes we have those selfish prayers. Um, but when we start praying for others, whether it's a family member, a church member, a friend of the family, a work acquaintance, somebody you know that needs prayer, whether they ask for it or not. I know I have not asked for a lot of people to pray for me, but I know a lot of people do. Friends and family especially. Oi, excuse me. Science is getting to me today. Prayer is one of our main forms of communication to God. But then there are those who are, I don't want to say a constant, inconstant prayer, because you can pray constantly. You don't have to be locked in a private room on your knees, a special place that you go to pray. And the prayers don't always have to be out loud. In fact, the Bible kind of discourages that kind of thing. An internal silent prayer is just as powerful, if not more so, than a prayer in front of a group of people or out on a street corner where some people might think you're nuts, but you know what? Let them think you're nuts. I'm not discouraging you to not go out and pray out loud in public. It's one of those things the Bible kind of discourages because the silent prayer of a prisoner, a silent prayer of a mother, just a silent prayer for help at work because of the fact that things are going a little bonkers. Those are probably just about, if not more powerful than any other form of prayer. Now, you can take, oh, jeez. I do not remember the person's name or who they are, but I've heard stories about people who literally walk in the woods, on the beach, in the mountains, just praising God for the beauty around them, praising God for nature itself, or even just praising God for the fact that you finally got solitude and quiet. They're all worthwhile. No matter how trivial you may think they are, they're all worthwhile. And I am now going to end my video because, one, it's getting a little late, and I don't want people thinking I'm just talking for the sake of talking, because I'm not really not want to do these videos. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any constructive questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the box below. If you do have questions, go ahead and leave them. Just try not to be abrasive. I know I'm trying not to, and I apologize if I am. But I'd like to hear your questions. Sometimes your ideas spark ideas of my own. So if you have like an idea, go ahead and put it on there. I did notice I looked at a lot of my information and whatnot on here last night before I went to bed, and I noticed that my cooking episode got the most views. And I don't know if that's in part because of the fact that I put hashtags on there. I'm still learning this stuff. I'm still kind of new at this editing part anyhow. But at this point in time, my cooking videos may be few and far between because right now it's a combination of days off and product. The reason why I'm saying product is because the fact that I found out recently that there is becoming I don't know if it's nationwide, because I don't know if we ship meat from other countries, but nationwide right now there is a shortage of beef. Now, one of the reasons why is due to the fact that the meat packing plants a lot of them have been shut down to the factor of discovery of COVID within the plants. Which is kind of like, how is that possible? Plants have been closed for a month or so, and all of a sudden they're discovering that it's in the meat, it's in our animals, and I'm like, oh, I'm not a big vegetarian. I like my meat. I'm not a big chicken fan, but I will eat chicken if it's cooked right. Fish in this part of the country is kind of like, I don't know, because if it's in the meat packing plants, what is it going to do for the poultry system, and what is it going to do about the fish? So I guess I just have to learn how to enjoy my veggies somehow. Well, there's butter sauce, there's Dijon sauce, there's cheese sauce. Oh, I'll figure out something. But anyhow, yeah, your suggestions, your ideas are accepted. Sometimes I won't like them and just ignore them. Sometimes I will be like, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll try that. I don't know. But anyhow, if you are new to this channel or you have friends and family members, if you're new to this channel and are an existing member and have friends and family members or people you know that might get something or just enjoy these videos, go ahead and tap that bell. YouTube will let you know when I put in a new video. Until next time, God bless and have a good day. Bye.